This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 278 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer and glad you've joined us and looking forward to you hearing from my guest on this particular episode, Jamey Schrier. And one thing I'll have to say is that I owe Jamey a little bit of an apology because when I was talking to him, I thought, this guy just seems really familiar to me, and just being the dunce that I was, I realized that he had been on previous episode of the podcast. Jamey was back on episode number 185, and Jamey is a great guy to talk to and great guy to get to know. And in this particular episode, we talk some more about outsourcing and being able to learn how to work smarter rather than harder. And I know this is a topic that Jamey is passionate about, and really, it's something that I have to kind of keep reminding myself to do. I know I tend to be a person that takes on too much. Part of it is that I'm an Enneagram 2, and so I'm a helper, and it's hard for me sometimes to hold that boundary and say no to things. But anyway, talking to Jamey was helpful for me, but, in my consulting with other therapists and other practice owners, one of the things that I think is hard for people to do is let go and outsource and know when to do that and how to do that. And so it's something I've been working on this year, is being able to really figure out what I need to offload. And so I'm looking forward to you hearing Jamey's story and some of the things that he's learned along the way, and really doing a great job of sharing with others how to be better at outsourcing and not taking on so much. So we'll get to my conversation with Jamey here in just a moment. I would love for you to go over and check out the resources that we have at Practice of Therapy. Just simply go to practiceoftherapy.com. Got lots of stuff planned here for the future. And again, part of what I've been focusing on this past month is really, and this is really appropriate for this episode, is outsourcing some things. Really separating out the Psychcraft network and really getting that up and going well. We've got now, I think we're up to about 7 or 8 podcasters in the network. So I've been focusing on that, but also focusing on building communities within the Practice of Therapy. And so you can find out more about those by going to practiceoftherapy.com/community to find out the different things that are there. And so, so be sure and check it out. So I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft Network, and also from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hi, I'm Whitney Owens. If you don't know me, I am the person behind the Wise Practice podcast, which is part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. I am so proud to be a part of this network, along with my good friend, Gordon Brewer, who's doing such amazing work on helping people on their practice journey. If you haven't discovered the Wise Practice podcast yet, you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'd love for you to join us as we explore how to grow a faith-based practice that brings you the income you need and the lifestyle you want. Be sure to check out the podcast and other helpful information at whitneyowens.com. There you will learn more about the Wise Practice community, how to become a member, as well as information on the 2023 Wise Practice Summit. And hey, Sightcraft Network is a sponsor, so hope you can make it.
One of the keys to a successful private practice is having the right systems and processes in place to make things run as smoothly as possible. With a system like TherapyNotes, you'll have more time to spend with what matters most, your clients. TherapyNotes is a complete practice management system with everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with patients remotely, create rich documentation, and bill insurance right at your fingertips. Their streamlined software is accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Your clinical records will be secure with less paperwork, which means you can give a much better quality of care. It's the EHR that Gordon uses in his practice. Be sure to check them out today by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and be sure to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to you meeting Jamey Schrier. Welcome, Jamey.
Oh, thank you, Gordon. Appreciate being on.
Yes. And so Jamey has got, I discovered his website, and he's got a lot of great resources, which, as most people know with this podcast, I love being able to share great resources with people on practice building and just how we can do better job at what we do. But Jamey, as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yeah, great question. So I'm a physical therapist by trade. Been in the physical therapist for over 25 years now, and I always just thought I'd be in the business ownership world. My dad owned a small business. I remember going with him and, just experiencing what it's like. A few years after I graduated, bounced around a little bit, hospital systems and such. And I took the leap of faith that I'm sure many of your listeners, if not all of them, have taken in one time or another, the leap of faith to say, I'm good at what I do. I love treating. I'm going to run my own business because I can't really stand being told what to do by other people, when to go on vacations and all this other stuff. I want to do it the way I think it needs to be done. So that's what I did. And for about 2 years, it was great. And then something happened that I wasn't really prepared for. We started to grow, which is nice. And as you grow, as you know, Gordon, you need to hire people. And you think people act like you do, think like you do, show up on time like you do. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They don't. They really don't. They think the way they think. And that started causing a lot of stress, a lot of angst. People would come, people would go. You get the Monday morning letter. Hey, this is great. You're the best. I'm leaving. It's not you, it's me, some of that stuff. And it really caused a lot of financial issues, a lot of just angst within myself, relationship with my wife, kids. I just started working more and more hours, although hiring people should have caused me to work less hours, but that's not the case. And it was really a big struggle. And then almost like a blessing in disguise happened. My place caught on fire and burned down, which, I was driving home from the beach and my wife got a call from my father-in-law, says, I think your place is on fire. I see it on TV. And without skipping a beat, I said, good. I hope it's my suite and I hope it burns to the ground. That was the level of, I wasn't happy now. It was almost like a snow day. Right? Remember when you're younger, you have a snow day and you're like, no school. That's what it was like for me, not having to go to work on Monday or Tuesday or literally the next 3 to 4 months. But it gave me time to reflect and gave me time to be like, what am I really doing here? Am I really going to try to grow a business, or am I going to keep going down the path that I'm going to, which I really wasn't happy? I even contemplated leaving the profession altogether.
Right.
So I decided I'm gonna figure out how to do this. I know it's possible. There's other talented therapists. There's nothing that I cannot delegate to someone. I just don't know how to do it. So I hired
Hmm.
a business coach, and I spent the next 9 years. I'm a slow learner. 9 years creating a practice. Only had 2 locations. It wasn't this massive practice, but it did grow to, a good 7-figure business. And I took that year, which was 2013, when I removed myself from a schedule, did not treat one patient, even though people would tell me, you have to, they won't send you people and all that other junk. 137 days off, made more money than I've ever made, had a fantastic staff, and was getting great reviews and everything. And
Hmm.
that's when I realized, wow, I think I did something really unique here. And I started sharing it with other people. And then
Hmm.
people said, hey, can you coach me? And then for the past 10 years, I've been in this coaching world, coaching
Right.
all different types of people.
Right. And you've got a book that you wrote as well.
Yeah, I wrote a book called The Practice Freedom Method. And it was really based on my journey on, I think a lot of books out there are kind of like how-to books, right? They give you
Hmm.
strategy, they give you concepts and lessons. This book was more of almost like a personal autobiography of not only what I was going through, but I peeled back the curtain of what was really going on with me and
Hmm.
my relationships and my personal experience. I had to go on medication. It was so bad financially. I mean, so I really share all of these things that, the book has been out now a few years. People seem to really resonate with, but don't always hear about because, it's kind of like the Facebook world. If you look on
Hmm.
Facebook, you would think the world is perfect and
Hmm.
everyone in it is just doing fantastic because that's all you see.
Yeah.
But the reality, business is not easy. And I really try to share what it's really like and then give people, ways that they can improve their business
Right.
and their life.
Right. Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, as you rebuilt your practice, literally, I mean, from the building up, what what did you learn about what were the key elements that were maybe missing before that made the change for you?
Yeah, the thing that really stuck out me to the most is I was just doing too many things. I coined this term, the overwhelmed operator.
Hmm.
I was the consummate overwhelmed operator. I would do my job, and I was still treating pretty much a full caseload, about 30 hours a week. But then I would hire someone, I would kind of do their job. I'd hire
Hmm.
another therapist, but I would jump in and micromanage a little bit. I'd hire an office manager, but I would be doing some stuff. I was running the Costco to pick up paper towels. I was jumping in with insurance issues. So I was working 70 hours a week, just trying to keep things going, just trying to keep the
Hmm.
plate spinning. And when I had a break, I started to realize like you cannot build any type of successful business. And when I say success, Gordon, it's much more than just money. Yes, we
Hmm.
need to be financially well compensated in our businesses, but it's about having time freedom. It's about doing something that I love and feel passionate about and impacting other people. I wasn't achieving any of those.
Hmm.
And yet I was working a ton. That's like the worst thing you want to do is, hey, I'm going to work 1 million hours and make no money and be unhappy. And I start to realize, and I start talking to a lot of other people, there's so many people in the same boat. So that's what became my journey. My journey became how do I identify and then determine what things I should be doing, and more
Hmm.
importantly, what things that I really shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And the more I started to, and I'm happy to share how I did this, the more
Hmm.
I started to do less of the things I didn't like to do, um, the better my business became and the happier I came. which was,
Mhm.
you look back and you're like, well, of course, you do less things you don't like, things improve. But when you're in the middle of everything, you don't think that's the case because you have a hard time letting go.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, yeah. So how did you, I guess one question, and what you're mentioning, I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, and that you busy yourself to death,
Hmm.
and we don't delegate or outsource enough of the things that we just don't enjoy doing. I'm guilty of it myself, and I've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, as they say.
Yeah.
Um, so, what was your process of really starting to get through the weeds and really figure out, okay, what do I need to be offloading? What do I need to be doing more of? All of those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
I think the first thing I know the first thing that I did, and the first thing that I teach people when they face something like this is we have to tell the truth. There's a great quote that says, "All progress starts by telling the truth." And obviously, in your field, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it is about telling the truth and coming out with stuff and then dealing with it. So in this case, it's being open and honest with myself. And a way to do that is to write down specifically the things that you do every hour, every day,
Mm-hmm.
and spend I remember doing this exercises years ago, and in my mind, I did about 7 things. But when I wrote my list, it was like 60 different tasks I was doing, so
Wow.
many of them simultaneously. And you start to realize when you see a list written on a piece of paper, I like to write the list on a piece of paper, hand, pencil, pen to paper. You realize no wonder I'm overwhelmed. Look how many things I'm doing. And this is all in the last week or two. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the place to start. Write a list of all the things that you're doing. And then the next thing that I did is I like to look at things as energy and time. I'm a very big energy and time person. And the idea is what or sorry, not time. Energy and money. Energy and
Mm-hmm.
money. Time is energy and money. Of the tasks that I'm doing, is it something that I love to do? That feeds me, that gives me energy? Or is it something that takes energy away? So I refer these as high energy tasks or low energy tasks. So I would take this list of everything I'm doing and I would put an H or an L, high energy, low energy. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like it wasn't high or wasn't low, that's fine. I'm not really worried about those right now. I would just put like nothing. And then I looked at it as how how profitable or beneficial is the exercise? So I would put a financial value to it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I would answer the front desk phone, which funny is because I actually had a front desk person, but I'd still jump in and answer the phone sometimes. Well, at the time, that was a $15 an hour job. So I put $15 on that. And then treating patients. Yes, I loved it. Yes, I was good at it. How much was that worth? $35 an hour. So now I had this sheet of tasks that I've done, and they have an energy associated with them, and then they have a financial value. Then what I did is determine, well, what is my value? What am I worth an hour? The easiest way is determine, well, how much money are you making? And you can just
Mm-hmm.
divide that by 2,000 hours, which would give you about what your hourly rate is. You could also put what you think your worth is if you had the time to really build and market and grow your business. So I started looking at what my value was, and I said, well, my value is at least at the time about $150 an hour, based on what I was should have been getting paid and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the exercise became, okay, what is something that isn't worth my $150 an hour, such as the $15 an hour task?
Mm-hmm.
And what is low energy?
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, Gordon.
Right. Right.
It's so stupid how simple it is.
Yeah.
And yet it was sometimes difficult to do it because of these other things going on. But that's how I started. So then I would just highlight and circle low energy, low value, low energy, low value, meaning the cost of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, well, where do I begin? The first thing I ever delegated was answering the phones. It didn't cost me anything to delegate it because I already had someone answering the phones, but I'd jump in there. Oh my God, I was a pain in the butt. I would jump in and answer it sometimes. So I just basically went to her and I went, Claudia, I just apologize. I realize I've been jumping in and answering the phone. And the reason I have is, well, sometimes you're not here, or sometimes it rings too much. Can we, tighten up that? And I promise I will not jump in. She said, sure. All you have to do is let me know. That freed me up. That gave me time back. But it also gave me energy back.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in love with answering the phones.
Right.
So that's where I started. One of the big ones I delegated, and I know this is a big one. You can tell me what you think about this one. I delegated bookkeeping.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get to the nearest. I don't think I ever personally reconciled my books. First of all, I wasn't really sure how to do it. Second of all, I hated getting so detailed with numbers. So I'd look in the bank account and I'd look at supposedly my reconciliation. If it was off by a few thousand, I'd be like, that's not bad. I would just trust and hope it was right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope is never a strategy. When I actually found a local bookkeeper, she transformed my world. Oh, unbelievable how many things I was doing wrong. It was worth every penny of what I paid her. Multiple.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's an idea of what I did. So then the game really became, what can Jamey delegate this week or this month? What can I start to remove off my plate? I started with the easy stuff first, and then I went to the things that were a little bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And that story just sounds so familiar with, I think, a lot of people in their practices. They, when they start their practice, they're doing a lot of the bootstrapping, they're doing all the stuff. Which I think that's a good idea and let you learn all the moving parts. But if you keep hanging on to that and keep answering the phone, you keep doing all those other tasks that keep the boat afloat, so to speak, you just wear yourself out. And so for you, Jamey, how was it that you were able to begin to let go of those things? Because I think that's a tough one for people.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Letting go came down to a few things. One, what was I trying to hang on to? One of the hang-ons were, no one can do it as well as me. Now, the front desk answering the phones, she could do it just fine. But when I started hiring therapists, when I started hiring directors and other people to lead and manage my business, it was more difficult to let that go because I didn't think they could do it as well as me. What I begin to learn, though, is anytime you start to feel like that, you can turn and say, well, what is it that you want them to be able to do? So I call it know, do, communicate. What do you want this person to know? What do you want them to be able to do or perform? And how do you want them to be able to communicate? So then I started writing those things down. And in essence, I was creating the process. I was creating the training around the thing, which then I felt more comfortable. They felt more comfortable because they knew specifically what the position was. But that was one big one, is they can't do it as good as me. The other one, later on, when I started to, reduce my treatment hours because I knew if I was going to truly run and build a bigger business, I couldn't be delivering the services as well. It's not that it can't be done, but it's very, very difficult. I'll just say impossible to be the owner, the manager, and the therapist, as well as the person taking out the trash and doing everything. It's not that you're not willing to do it. It's too much to handle for one person. So when I started to look at hiring other people and started to look at, well, what would it take for them to be successful? It changed completely how I thought. But then something else came along that says, well, Jamey, if you stop treating, who are you? Like, you identify as a therapist. Hey, I'm Jamey. What do you do? I'm a physical therapist. I was so ingrained in my own identity that I didn't know who I was outside of that. That was a much deeper type of thing that I had to address and engage with of who am I really? Am I Jamey, a business owner in the business of physical therapy? Jamey, the entrepreneur? Or am I just Jamey, the therapist? And when I started to look at myself as something bigger, more potential, it became easier than to let go. I think a lot of people, and it doesn't matter what industry it is, but a lot of people, whether it's, psychotherapy, mental health, chiropractic, physical therapy, what have you, we start to get so ingrained in that is who our identity is because of the training we've had, because of the investment we have, that we start to struggle with letting go and actually embracing this unbelievable opportunity to truly be a business owner that just creates a business to help others and all of that, and not you be everything. Those were the two biggest, Gordon.
Right. One thing that folks that listen to this podcast hear from me all the time is understanding your why. And I think what happens as you're describing this, what I thought of is that a lot of times we get so busy doing all the stuff that we lose sight of the why. I know at the very beginning you talked about, the reason for us going into practice or going into private practice in particularly is we want that freedom and that autonomy that owning your own practice brings, or at least that we perceive that it brings. And the problem is that we get so busy with stuff and really, and I think the intent behind it is we want to have an excellent practice, provide excellent care for people and all of those kinds of things, which are good. But if we start getting too far into running the practice or it running us, then we lose sight of our why, or lose sight of, our whole reason for doing it to begin with.
For sure. And, I described my why at the beginning with, this is not how I wanted my life to be. I mean, I remember, I love my parents, I love my father, but he was working 6 days a week. He didn't come to my games unless they were on a Sunday. And I remember, my parents, arguing about money, just normal stuff, but it was a lot. And then the arguments about what someone else has. So you start to grow up in your formative years with this in your brain. And all of a sudden, my wife and I are having arguments about money.
Yeah.
And it's affecting everything. And I start to get anxious and worried about money. And I realize people in our professions are helpful, do good professions. A lot of us have these money blocks. And it's no wonder that we have the money blocks, which is the reason many of us do not do well financially. Or is it some other reason? Well, I don't think there's a lack of people. I mean, when I talk about my physical therapy clients, there's not a lack of human bodies that fail. When we talk about mental health, now that it's coming more into the fore, there's just this number. You got a human body, you got a brain, you're going to have some mental health issues depending on whatever your specialty is.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 342 million people just in this country. There's not a lack of people that need help. In
Right.
fact, there's considerably more people that need your help than actually do what you do. So it's being selfish by not looking of how to build a business where you're not doing everything, because you can serve more people if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the why became selfishly, my business is designed to serve my life. My life isn't designed to serve my business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like you said, first couple years, bootstrap, you do what you got to do. But if you're more than 2 years and you say the words, I'm overwhelmed, stressed, and busy, it's because you have too many things you are doing, and the things that you're doing are not energizing and lighting you up. So the real journey becomes, how do I do the things that I love that move me towards the life I want to have, the money, the time, and the freedom I want to have, while building a business and a team that serves people at the highest level. So there are no losers. Everyone wins in that model. Right now, I guarantee 99% of the people that are listening, they're losing. They personally are losing because you're sacrificing you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And you're justifying it perhaps, well, I'm really trying to do good. I do good. You have to do good starting with you. You have to be, I said this in a workshop last week, fantastically selfish.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be fantastically selfish because you are the light. The more you can continue to shine brighter and take care of you, you will shine bright on so many other people. If you struggle, and obviously you know this with just in the mental health, if you struggle, that energy goes out there.
Right.
And that's not good energy.
Right.
And you can only fake it for so long.
Yeah.
So it's our job to take care of ourselves, which is why my business started to shift and my life started to shift as I was focusing on things that I really enjoy doing and started delegating and learning how to do systems and all that stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah. So how did you learn those things, would you say? Just the hard way? Like I say all the time, I've learned a lot of stuff the hard way.
The expensive way for sure.
Uh-huh.
That's part of the hard way. I think part of when I was in my I guess I call it sabbatical for a few months. Look, we all invested a ton of money to go to school. There was no guarantees we were going to get in school, and yet we sacrificed. Once we got in school, there was no guarantees we were going to get into higher education, masters, doctorates. But we sacrificed, we studied, we worked hard, and we paid a bunch of money. Then we get out of school. No guarantee. They're not guaranteeing you a job. But we thought, this is what we want to do. You open up a business. There's no guarantee you're going to get any clients. There's no guarantee they're going to pay you. But then something happens. I don't know what it is, but something happens with the idea of, so how much have you invested in money and time in your business itself, in learning how to grow this business and build a business? I know my answer was $14.95. After putting hundreds of thousands in my education, I put next to nothing in my business. And then I was wondering why my business wasn't doing well.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about this during my time away, and I realized if I want what I want, like that's why the why is so important. What is it that you want? Why is it important? I wanted freedom. I want to know what it's like to run and own a business that can just help so many more people without me doing everything. It went against everyone I knew. No one I knew in a small business was operating like that. I didn't care. Right. So I knew I was going to have to invest. So I hired a coach, right? I took programs. I started reading tons of books. But the biggest difference was a coach, because reading books is great. Listening to podcasts is great. But for me, hiring a coach helped me with accountability and helped me with prioritizing what was most important. Because in my mind, it all seemed important, but I couldn't do it all because that overwhelmed me. So that's when things really started to move, is when I started hiring a coach to keep track of everything. And I still failed a bunch, but I learned.
Mhm. Oh yeah, and ditto to everything you said, because that's been my experience as well. Just of, when you invest in that way, of getting coaching, mentoring, those kinds of things. At least for me, I've always gotten the ROI out of that, if not two, three, tenfold
Oh yeah.
of putting that that energy in that way. So,
But that takes a
well,
shift, Jordan. That
mhm,
takes a shift
yeah,
in realizing that you are investing in the most important thing in your life
hmm,
right now. I'm
right,
not going to say more important than your family, of course,
uh-huh,
but it's close, because your business, especially if you're the primary breadwinner, your
hmm,
business is giving your family their lives.
right,
Your business
right,
is supporting, like in my case, my business supports everything in my family. So if I'm not doing everything I can to help my business and help everyone in it, including the clients and the staff, that then help support my family, that's not a good model.
right,
And I just see a lot of talented, smart people that just don't shift and take this business seriously.
right,
It's almost like, I know for me, it was almost like a hobby. I mean, yes, it was my business, but I
hmm,
didn't treat it like that. I treated it like a self-employed. I was trading time for money, right? I treated
hmm,
someone, I got paid for the hour or whatever it is, and there was no leverage. I started running out of time and all that. So, I've
right,
worked with a lot of people in the psychotherapy business. Love the model, great model, especially if, I think the business has a lot more of a cash-based model. But even some of my clients in the insurance space, there's not a lack of people. We
right,
just got to make sure that A, it's a profitable model, right? That's number one.
hmm,
And B, how do you begin to delegate and remove and eliminate the things that don't light you up and serve you well and doesn't serve the business well? When you start to do that, things start to accelerate. But it's scary for a lot of people because
oh
we're
yeah,
used to just doing things the way we do them.
right, right. It's that whole scarcity mentality that we have to overcome. Yeah,
Yeah, and this comfort zone, this zone
yeah,
issue, right? I mean,
right.
no one's ever grown inside the comfort zone,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So, but it's
Yeah.
hard, getting out of the comfort zone is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And that's why I've always recommend having some accountability partner, whether it's a
Hmm.
mentor, whether it's a small group of like-minded people, almost like a little mastermind, or it's
Hmm.
having, an accountability coach or a private coach. You, you can't create something inside of the brain that created where you are right now. You can't
Hmm.
magically change that. Yes, you can read books and podcasts, but you're still biased by what you think. So if you're going to change how you think to get to a different solution than you already created, isn't that like impossible to do? Like,
Sure.
if your
Yeah.
bias is your bias, you can't all of a
Hmm.
sudden think outside of your bias. I
Right.
mean, this is what started to hit me when I was working with people. I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought about this. And my coach would say, well, because you can only think like you think.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, this makes sense. And then you start getting confidence. And that's what we're really in. As business owners, as practice owners, we are in the confidence game.
Hmm.
We're trying to increase our confidence. That gets us more motivated to do things, which gives us better results, which increases
Right.
our confidence, and et cetera.
Right. The value of a coach is that they can point out the stuff you don't know that you don't know. Um, and
Exactly.
that's, yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, Jamey, I know we could spend a full day talking about all of this, and I want to be respectful of your time. Tell folks how they can get in touch with you and where they can find you and all your great stuff.
Yeah. So the best thing to do is you just go on my website, practicefreedomu, the letter u.com. You could download a copy of my book there, The Practice Freedom Method. You can order it on Amazon, but if you'd like a digital version for free, you can download that. And then there's also a quiz that I have on there. It's called the Practice Owners Quiz. It's a great next step to really determine what are the areas you're really having struggle with. So I ask like 30, 35 questions in 7 different parts of a business. Some people don't even realize there's that many different parts. And then you get a score. And then based on your score, I then provide resources to how to help you with the specific things that you're struggling with. So that'd probably be the next step. Obviously, if you're on LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always putting out lots of free stuff. Courses, I do webinars and things like that. Obviously, I do podcasts like this. So there's not a lack of free stuff out there.
Oh, yeah.
Provide.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And we'll be sure and have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to find it easily. Well, Jamey, I'm so glad we connected, and I hope to maybe get you back on the podcast again. Well, big thanks to Jamey for being on the podcast again. I always enjoy these kinds of conversations, and hopefully he's got you thinking about some things and about how you can have more freedom in your practice. I know, depending on the phases that you're in, as you get busier, it really is important. If you're gonna make any sort of leveling up or any of that sort of thing, you really do have to outsource some things and hand some things off and learn how to delegate well. And it's something that I'm still learning and trying to get better at doing. I think a lot of times, at least for me, I think one thing, I don't know if we thought about if we mentioned this in this particular episode, but one of the things that I have always kind of struggled with is asking for what I need. Again, I'm in therapy for that. And it's something we tend to want to, well, I'll just do it myself because I don't want to inconvenience someone else by asking them to do these things. It's one of those kind of silly values I grew up with. But anyway, being able to know yourself and knowing what you need to let go of, what you need to hand off to others is a real important piece in having a successful practice. And so you heard that in our interview. And thanks again, Jamey, for being on the podcast. And be sure to check out his things. You'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. You can find out more about them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and be sure and check them out. You can use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and try them out for 2 months for free. And I love TherapyNotes. They have really transformed my practice by using their platform and the way that we do business and being able to make ourselves more accessible to our clients, but also just running things more smoothly. And it's in a way, it's an automated way that we've outsourced, just like we've talked about here in this particular episode. So be sure and check them out. And also be sure and check out the other great podcasters on the SiteCraft Network. And you can go to sitecraftnetwork.com and see all the other great podcasters that are there. Some wonderful colleagues of mine on there, but also just a wealth of information through those various podcasts. And also the various resources and products and services that those people offer will always help you out in your practice. So be sure and check them out. sitecraftnetwork.com. Well, thanks again, folks, for joining me on this particular episode. I look forward to being in your ears and in your lives next week. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.